Being a marketer's no sweat. You just have to manage dozens of channels, launch hundreds of campaigns, score thousands of leads, and okay, fine, it's a lot of sweat. Unless you have HubSpot's AI-powered marketing tools to help you do all that and more. Get started at HubSpot.com/marketers.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like you know to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
Welcome into 49ers Access. My name is Sterling Bennett, and today we are giving away our 2024 mid-season San Francisco 49er awards, including MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Most Improved Player, Comeback Player, and giving away the Offensive Rookie and Defensive Rookie of the Year awards. We're also going to react to Christian McCaffrey's practice return and what that could mean for the San Francisco 49ers while they come out of the bye week. The Buccaneers this weekend. It's a massive game for San Francisco. They're now in third place in the NFC West, so a massive Week 10 game against the Buccaneers coming up this Sunday. But first and foremost, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Leave that review on the audio podcasting platforms. 5 stars is the easiest and freest way to help the show out. And let's dive into my 2024 San Francisco 49ers mid-season awards. And I think with the first award we're giving away, it has to go to the MVP of the San Francisco 49ers through 9 weeks of the season. There were a couple of players we were going to talk about. Brock Purdy, who I thought was a front runner initially, but once I dove into what the team was doing, actually, I said, you know what? There is one player that is head and shoulders above the rest in regards to who deserves to be this team's most valuable player, and that is linebacker Fred Warner. He's the MVP by far. He has 66 total tackles this year. He has 6 pass breakups, 4 forced fumbles, 2 interceptions, 1 sack, 1 touchdown. When you talk about most valuable player, you have to ask, what does that word valuable mean? This Niners team, this Niners defense would, even though they're 4-4, would be nowhere near that mark without a player like Fred Warner. Now, I get it. Quarterback is maybe a more important position to the overall health and well-being of a National Football League team, but Fred Warner in the middle of that defense where Devondre Campbell has been just a freaking turnstile at linebacker 2. The secondary at times, albeit improved this year. Early in the season, it wasn't great. The defensive line at times hasn't gotten pressure, hence the trade for an edge rusher or run-stuffing defensive tackle conversation is currently happening ahead of tomorrow's trade deadline. Fred Warner has been a mainstay of near perfection into that defense. He is the head and shoulders, the leader of the Niners defense. He's the one breaking down huddles, breaking down the team before pre-games and whatnot. He'll be in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation if he can keep this up, and he'll definitely be an All-Pro this year. Fred Warner is the epitome of the most valuable player on this team thus far. I don't think you can really put anybody else in that conversation, including Nick Bosa and Brock Purdy. Fred Warner is, through 9 weeks, this team's MVP. Moving on to the Offensive Player of the Year. This one was a tight battle for me between Brock Purdy and the eventual winner. Brock Purdy's been having a career season. Now, there's been really highs, or really high highs, if you will, and some lows, that Chiefs game being one of them. But Brock Purdy overall having a relatively great season for the San Francisco 49ers, been one of the more consistent pieces on that offense, where Christian McCaffrey hasn't played, and Deebo Samuel's missed time, and George Kittle's missed time, and Brandon Ayuk's going to miss all of the season. Even Juwan Jennings has been great, but and Jordan Mason's had a great season thus far for San Francisco, but I had to give it to the people's tight end, that being George Kittle. 40 receptions this year, 503 receiving yards, 6 touchdowns, and a 12.6 yards per catch on average. All of those stats lead the team. George Kittle has been darn near an All-Pro, or he should be in that conversation. He should be already listed as one. He's been the best tight end in football all year long. When you look at his stats, George Kittle ranks first amongst tight ends in touchdowns, yards per route, PFF grade, and receiving yards. He has reestablished himself as the best tight end in the entire league. I know him and Kelsey have been kind of, 1A, 1B for a long time. There was a lot of conversation coming into this year of, well, Sam Laporta in Detroit's going to have a great year, but it really hasn't been the case. George Kittle has been the best tight end all year long. He's been this best team's offensive player all year long. When there is no Christian McCaffrey, when Ayuk has not played or been slow to progress into his former self, which will never be this year because of the injury he got, Deebo Samuel missing time, George Kittle has been this team's most consistent, their most clutch, and their best offensive player of this year. He is Brock Purdy's number one target the majority of the time, whether it's the red zone or anywhere. It has been, hey, F it, George Kittle's out there somewhere, and usually George Kittle is coming down with the football. I know there's been some conversation of, how that salary cap looks like next year and cap hits and whatnot, and do you want to pay George Kittle? If this is a George Kittle you're going to get the rest of this season and so on and so forth, yeah, you're going to bring back George Kittle. He's been the best tight end in football all year, this team's best offensive player, and I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that even with Christian McCaffrey and Juwan Jennings back against the Buccaneers this weekend, that George Kittle's role does not diminish. You want to continue to feed George Kittle the football. He's one of the biggest mismatches you have on your offense, and if you're not going to have Ayuk and you're going to have lesser used Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle has to be the guy you lean on. I think it should be. Let's go to Defensive Player of the Year for a second. Diamador Lenore is going to get that. Fred Warner, obviously, is the MVP. I didn't want to give the same award to two, or didn't want to give one player 2 awards, so expect different people each time we talk about each award. Lenore has been phenomenal. He is Himothy the Hyena. That's what his Instagram is. That's what he's been. He's been this team's best cornerback. He's been this team's best coverage player. He has been and will be deserving of that next massive contract, to a point of Charvarius Ward, which I know the tragedy of his daughter passing away, RIP, that sucks, it's terrible. But on a football, strictly football conversation, Lenore has been, and I think will be, this team's number one cornerback going forward. In 291 coverage snaps this year, he's been targeted 52 times. In those 52 targets, he has broken up 6 passes. He has forced 5 incompletions. He has 2 interceptions. He has 1 forced fumble. And again, in those 291 coverage snaps, he has 0 touchdowns allowed. When you talk about who are the lockdown cornerbacks in the NFL, I get you may have guys higher than him, but Diamador Lenore needs to be in that conversation. He is and has been this team's best defensive player, not named Fred Warner this year, been their best cornerback by far, and will be deserving of that massive contract this offseason. You have to pay him, lock him up as soon as you can. He is, again, he's a dog. The mentality is there, and it's been shown the last 2 years where you could argue the last 2 years he's actually been this team's best cornerback. Even for as good as Charvarius Ward's played, Lenore has been up there in that conversation dating back to last season, and this year he's even better. So Lenore gets the Defensive Player of the Year award through 9 weeks for the San Francisco 49ers. The next award is Comeback Player of the Year. There's a really obvious answer, and that's who I'm going to give it to. You really couldn't argue for anybody else. No one was really coming off a massive injury or whatnot for this team, so I gave it to Ricky Pearsall. Maybe Talanoa Hufanga would have got it had he been playing all year and played better, but Ricky Pearsall got shot in the chest. He almost died. How can you not give it to him? The fact that he's even alive right now, that alone deserves to win the award, but he's played 2 football games. He has 8 touches for 98 yards, 12 and a quarter yards per touch. And again, he shouldn't even be alive. And he's playing football this year. that is enough to give Pearsall the Comeback Player of the Year award. I think as this year progresses, we will see more of what made him a first-round pick in this past year's draft. And I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that the fans that were so reluctant and bitter of like another receiver, I'm hoping Pearsall can prove them wrong. And I think he will in the next year or so once he gets this whole year and next offseason. The future is so bright for Ricky Pearsall out of Florida. And I think that, just getting shot in the chest and playing football is like, it's crazy. The San Francisco 49ers darn near have their own Damar Hamlin, and somehow it's not treated that way at times. I get Hamlin died on the football field, and that was scary, and it was tragic, and it was like, what the heck's going on? But Pearsall, he almost got shot before he even played, and he's back out there in 2 games, looking pretty good as a rookie against the Chiefs and against the Cowboys, and I'm hoping against the Buccaneers and so on and so forth, he looks even better because the potential is, the sky's the limit for this kid as a rookie, and hoping in the next few years he makes people go, wow, thank God we have him. So Pearsall gets the Comeback Player of the Year award, which I would assume would stick throughout the entire year. Some of these can certainly change, like Offensive Player of the Year can change, Defensive Player of the Year can change, MVP could change, but Comeback Player of the Year feels like the most solidified award we're going to give away today. Let's go to Offensive Rookie of the Season, and through 9 games, you can certainly have that conversation of Isaac Guerrero, but Jacob Cowing hasn't done enough. Pearsall just came back, again, not being shot in the chest, so there is a clear-cut steal of the draft. We're talking all 7 rounds, all 32 picks, including compensation picks. Dominic Pooney has been arguably the best draft pick all season long for any team. I get he plays guard, he isn't the left tackle, he isn't the right tackle, but he needs to be in that conversation of Rookie of the Year no matter what. In 289 pass blocking opportunities, 0 sacks allowed, 0 quarterback hits allowed, and only 14 pressures. He has not allowed a single soul to breathe and touch on Brock Purdy. That's how great Dominic Pooney has been. He's held up against teams like the Chiefs and Chris Jones, who was a non-factor in that game, albeit San Francisco lost, against teams like the Vikings that bring so much different pressures and whatnot. Really good. Dominic Pooney has been one of the greatest rookies this year. Whether it's offensive line, receiver, running back, he's been stellar. He's been awesome. When you talk about this draft class being so important into getting San Francisco back to 500 and going to be important into carrying them into the future, Dominic Pooney in 9 or 8 games so far has been the best one on offense. He's been stellar in the passing game, a 97.6 pass blocking efficiency grade, a 70 flat pass blocking grade as a whole per PFF, and the run blocking has also been great, a 73.3 run blocking grade. Dominic Pooney has been this team's overall best offensive line player, and this offensive line includes a second-round left guard and a Hall of Fame or future Hall of Fame left tackle. Pooney has been stellar, phenomenal. There is nobody else you choose. He's head and shoulders above the entire group of the offensive rookies. One of them by default in regards to Pearsall, but my goodness, Pooney has been just clap it up, 3rd round steal thus far for the San Francisco 49ers. Moving on to Defensive Rookie of the Year. This one was a little more contentious in my own brain, if I might say.
Whether you're ordering wings for the game, whipping up a 7-layer dip, or ordering pizza, there's something about football that makes you want to eat. And this football season, Uber Eats has the best deals on game day food. No matter what you're craving, from 2-for-1 pizza to buy one, get one wings, Uber Eats will be dropping new deals each week, all season long. Uber Eats, official on-demand delivery partner of the NFL. Order now. Terms and conditions apply. See app for details.
I was debating on, do I pick Malik Mustafa? He's replacing Talanoa Hufanga. He's a safety. He's had so many electric plays this year where I was like, how do you not pick Mustafa? He's been great for them. He's really solidified the safety position behind the linebackers. I think that, the interception against the Seahawks, the great run defending plays he had against the Chiefs. Like Mustafa has been just awesome. He was flying around against the Cowboys 2 weeks ago, or I guess last week. He's been incredible. And when you look at his stats, you say, what's the lowest yards per coverage snap allowed this season of anybody? It's Malik Mustafa at 0.12. Again, Mustafa has been great, and somehow I didn't pick him as the defensive rookie of the year thus far through 8 weeks. I think he'll definitely be in that conversation towards the end, but I had to go with second-round pick out of Florida State, Renardo Green. The Niners had a lot of questions of, where does Green fit in? Is he a starter this year? Is he going to supplant Charvarius Ward after the season? But Ward goes down with an injury. Green comes in, and in that game has a couple of pass breakups, gets the interception, the clutch one against Seattle. Then after that game, he doesn't give that job up to a point of Isaac Gadum is not even playing a lot of the time this year. Green has 15 tackles, 2 pass breakups, 1 interception, and 1 forced fumble. And when you dive into coverage grades this year per PFF, he has the second highest cornerback coverage grade at 79.1 from his draft class, so already great. And he is ninth, top 10 amongst all cornerbacks this season. The Niners are getting top 10 cornerback play from a second-round rookie at the cornerback position. That is phenomenal. That is just insane to say. The Niners, I think, hit on so many picks this year. Mustafa's a hit, Green's a pick, Pooney's a pick. If Shanahan can kind of work in Cowling here or there, he'll be a hit, hopefully. And Pearsall, once he can get some reps under his belt, should be a hit. And even Isaac Guerendo this year has shown spurts of being a massive hit for them that, hey, maybe this year or next year, he's the RB2 or mixed in with a McCaffrey and Mason kind of three-headed monster in that backfield. The Niners hit on so many picks this year where it's like, who do you it's a big toss-up. But on defense thus far, Green, I think, has been the best rookie they've had this season. Mustafa certainly in that conversation. Wouldn't blame me if you picked him, but Green has just been phenomenal this year for San Francisco. And then the most improved player this year, I wanted to pick Jauan Jennings so bad. I was like, oh, it's third and Jauan. He's been the receiver number 2. That game against the Rams was incredible. That game against the Cardinals, he was mossing dudes. I wanted to pick JJ so bad, and he'll be back this week, it looks like, off the hip injury, which will be awesome to see. Getting Debo and Kittle and CMC and Jennings back all together in 1 week is going to be just like, okay, here comes that second half push. But when Christian McCaffrey went down, although there were people that were saying, Jordan Mason, let's see what he can do, and I was in that it was certainly in that grouping, and I'm sure you may have been as well, but there was still some like, well, he's not Christian McCaffrey, though. How is this going to work? And while there has certainly been some drawbacks to not having CMC out there, because why wouldn't there be? He's the Offensive Player of the Year for a reason. Jordan Mason, I think, has been this team's most improved player this year, to a point of, I think even if Elijah Mitchell was healthy, he was beating him out for the RB2 job. And with CMC out, they have rarely missed a step in running the football outside of the run zone, I may add. But in 134 attempts, he has 685 rushing yards. Even with the bye week, that ranks 4th in the NFL. He has 3 touchdowns this year, 5.1 yards per carry. He has 10 catches, 86 yards, been a much better pass blocker this year. Jordan Mason has been, I think, the most improved player this year. You can argue again, Jauan Jennings, I wouldn't blame you for that at all. But I think Jordan Mason, the shoes he had to fill were massive. We're saying, how does this team replace an offensive player of the year? And Jordan Mason stepped up and said, well, I can't do it all, but I can certainly do 3/4 of that. And I think that's where I kind of said, okay, Jordan Mason, when you're the 4th leading rusher in football still, and you missed half of that Seahawks game, the Chiefs were stuffing the run all day long. Like Jordan Mason, even with the shoulder injury, is still a viable RB2 and RB1 in the NFL. And I'm hoping that once CMC comes back, which seems like it's going to be this week against the Buccaneers, they do not utilize Jordan Mason. And in fact, I still want to see Jordan Mason get the lion's share of the runs. I want to see a more even split. Give Mason 18, give McCaffrey 10. There's a way you can mix and match and keep CMC fresh, but also still utilize Jordan Mason, because Jordan Mason, the way he runs, the power, the ferocity, he has an electric running style where I've always said that this can be the LaDainian Tomlinson, Michael Turner of the San Francisco 49ers this year. Again, with CMC's injury, you want to limit his touches, utilize him in spurts to make him explosive the next, I don't know what it's been. You got 8 more weeks left, plus 3-4 in the playoffs. You got about 12 weeks to push to get to the Super Bowl if you want to go. You got to keep CMC fresh. That means utilizing Jordan Mason still. He has been a godsend this year for this offense. He has made it so it's not all on Brock Purdy's shoulders this year. And with that rounds out the most improved player and the entire team player awards through week number 9. I'll say him again. Jordan Mason, the most improved player this year. Renardo Green, defensive rookie of the year. Dominic Pooney, offensive rookie of the year. Ricky Pearsall, comeback player of the year. Diamador Lenore, the defensive player of the year. George Kittle, the offensive player of the year. And Fred Warner, the MVP. Funny enough, Brock Purdy does not get awarded this year. And if I want to say a coach involved, I would say probably Chris Forrester, the offensive line coach. Much improved offensive line this year. Still got to fix right tackle and still got to fix center, but overall, a much better unit this year. Worst coach goes to Brian Schneider on special teams, but we'll save that for a different day, and hoping that for as good as that special teams played against the Dallas Cowboys, hoping that's the case going forward, because it's not been great so far this season. I want to say what's up to Niner Media. He agrees with Pearsall 100%. He agrees with the I think he means the Punisher, as in Dominic Pooney. Rob Smith also says he agrees with Pearsall getting comeback player of the year and the Pooney Express all aboard. Then we have Fluffy Ninja here saying, hello, Niner fan, what's going on? But let's finally talk about the news of the day. I didn't expect it to get revealed today, but Christian McCaffrey, alongside Juwan Jennings and John Feliciano and Jake Moody, have all returned to the practice field ahead of tomorrow's NFL trade deadline. We have no idea what tonight or tomorrow holds for the San Francisco 49ers, but it feels like the Avengers are back. The portals have opened. Here comes Doctor Strange. Here comes Black Panther. Here comes Falcon. Whoever else you want to put in there, the portals have opened, and they are looking at Thanos, the second half of the NFL season, ready to make their final push towards a playoff run. The San Francisco 49ers are currently in 3rd place in the NFC West. Not exactly where you want to be post-bye week. The Bears didn't help them out. The Seahawks didn't help them out, but you're in a good place in regards to health. And if Christian McCaffrey is indeed coming back, which John Lynch said, that is the hope. Now, there's a chance he does not come back this week, but next week. This is kind of the final ramp-up period he gets. I'm assuming he'll kind of be monitored all week, and I'm hoping that even if he's active, they take it slow with him. You can win games against the Bucs, who aren't going to have Chris Godwin or Mike Evans. They play tonight against the Chiefs, so who knows who else they may not have. Fingers crossed they can stay healthy. But this is a massive get for San Francisco. If Christian McCaffrey is who he was last year, or even 85 to 75% of who he was last year, you are getting a top 5 running back returning for your offense. You're getting a phenomenal check down option for you, and hopefully, fingers crossed, in the biggest area this team needs to help is the red zone. We've talked all year long of if the defense has had the ups and downs, but overall played pretty well as of late against the Chiefs and against the Seahawks and the Cardinals and Dallas Cowboys. Again, still have their issues, but more importantly, one of the biggest problems San Francisco has had this year is the red zone offense. Games against the Cardinals and the Rams and the Vikings and the Chiefs could have been very, very different had this offense scored touchdowns inside the 20. And that, I think, is where a return of Christian McCaffrey, even if it is in a small role, even if McCaffrey only plays in the red zone against the Buccaneers this Sunday, that alone is enough to make me say, wow, this team should be able to score 28 to 30 points a game and kind of mitigate the defensive lapses they've had late in games in third and fourth quarters. Because when you look at where the Niners have struggled this year, it is third down rushing success and the red zone. This year, the San Francisco 49ers' third down rushing success rate has dropped 17% without Christian McCaffrey on the field. That alone is like, what the heck? Like, okay. You talk about third and shorts and maybe like a third and 4. CMC, if he's healthy, can help San Francisco sustain drives longer, not get stuffed on the offensive line, which doesn't absolve the offensive line issues, but certainly helps the offense as a whole have these long, grueling drives, lower their 3-and-out rate, which has been pretty high this year compared to where it was the last couple of seasons. So third down rates should improve under or with Christian McCaffrey back on the field, whether it's this Sunday or next Sunday. In the red zone, Christian McCaffrey's injury has, I think, been the most impactful in the red zone. Last year, in the red zone, he had 13 receptions on 17 targets for 5 touchdowns. That is money. That is almost as many touchdowns. Well, that's actually one less touchdown as George Kittle has had in 9 or 8 games this season. 7 games, I guess, for Kittle because he missed one against the Rams. But that's incredible for Christian McCaffrey. I think when you look at what Brock Purdy has been doing this year, not taking checkdowns, against the Rams, that's kind of one of the bigger games you look at and go, well, take your check down, Brock. Keep drives alive. Don't force throws. There's a real possibility that once Christian McCaffrey comes back, whether it's this game against the Buccaneers on Sunday or in Week 11, that the Niners not only get to improve third down rushing success rate in the red zone, but also Brock Purdy doesn't feel like he has to play hero ball, hopefully dropping his turnover rate down lower, making this team play more comfortable, with more competitiveness, sustain longer drives. Once they get into the red zone, score more points. Like, it's not to say that Christian McCaffrey fixes the offense, but what it does is it almost fixes the offense. It improves key areas to help them be better. They're fine. They're okay. But Christian McCaffrey takes them from being good or okay, average, to being great, to being elite, to being top 5 in football. That is what we're talking about here. This Niners team, I do think, can make the playoffs without Christian McCaffrey. But when you talk about Super Bowls, NFC championships, this team needs Christian McCaffrey over anybody else. Debo, Ayuk, Kittle, they all play their role for sure. Juwan Jennings, Pearsall, and whatnot. They're all going to play their role, but Christian McCaffrey elevates this team from good to great, from great to elite, from elite to top 10 to top 5 to top 1. Christian McCaffrey does so many things for this offense where, like, my mind thinks of Shanahan post-bye week, November. That's where this team turns things up. You have the Rams again. You have the Seahawks again. You have the Cardinals. You have the Bills and the Packers, who don't look as good as they once did. But you have so many great teams. The Lions, that's going to be a freaking dogfight if they're all healthy. This team needs Christian McCaffrey in the worst way. And you talk about, the Niners getting CMC back, their offense becomes limitless again. Right now, they're good, but they have limitations. You get CMC back, they become limitless in 2024. That is where you want to be coming into the second half. They essentially acquired 4 players without even trading for anybody. You get CMC back, Juwan Jennings back, Jake Moody, for what it's worth, is back, and John Feliciano becomes that backup guard / center role where maybe you're having a conversation of Feliciano should be center going forward. I wouldn't disagree. So the Niners really did acquire 4 players without doing anything, which is great to see, and hopefully CMC can stay healthy. But going back to that one stat I read about the red zone, CMC last year had 13 receptions on 17 targets for 5 touchdowns last year in the red zone. This year, including Guerrero and Mason and Patrick Taylor Jr. and Kyle Juszczyk. This team has 3 combined receptions from their running backs. And this team loves to throw the football on third downs in the red zone, and it's never, never, never to running backs. Christian McCaffrey hopefully allows this team to go from field goals to touchdowns. And when you start doing that, you start winning some more games. Looking at San Francisco's schedule, the remaining portion of the season, it's not easy. They have one of the hardest schedules remaining. I think it's like the 3rd or 4th toughest, but they have the Buccaneers coming up this Sunday, which I do think is a game San Francisco should win. They're off the bye week.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger for thousands of appetizing ingredients that inspire countless mouthwatering meals. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices. Plus, extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week and up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with points. So you can get big flavors and big savings. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
You kind of have to win that game, right? But you have a game against the Buccaneers on the road. Then you're at home against Seattle. Then you're on the road in Green Bay. Then you're on the road in Buffalo. Then you're at home against Chicago, at home against the Rams, in Miami, versus the Lions, and at the Cardinals. This is a scenario where the San Francisco 49ers, you get CMC back, although the way the team has played this year doesn't lean to given wins, right? But they can beat the Cardinals. The Dolphins, yeah. The Rams, yep, although I'm very scared of the Rams currently. The Bears, yep. The Seahawks for sure. The Buccaneers, yep. Okay, well, you're talking about 6 wins right there on paper, which means nothing. But you look at it as a whole, you're like, well, they can reasonably put 6 wins together this year in the second half. Well, then you're 10-7. You're 10-7, you're feeling pretty good. You're probably a wild card team. If not, the Cardinals fall off, the Rams get hot, Seahawks fall apart. This team could reasonably win the NFC West with 10 wins this year. And that even opens a conversation of you can win 11 games this year. And then you talk about being a 3rd or 2nd seed this year. For as crazy as this year has been, the NFC is wide open. It is the Lions and then everybody else. The Vikings are kind of falling apart a little bit. They won last night, but they played the Colts and Joe Flacco, so let's not go too crazy there. The Bears aren't playing good football. The Cardinals are kind of getting lucky with the way they're winning, but they're winning, and they're going for it. But the Niners are in a really good spot to make that second half run this year and, kind of ascend up the standings in the NFC and mainly the NFC West. Like, the Rams schedule is tough. The Cardinals have an easy schedule, but my goodness. We have a comment here saying, shout out to everyone, including myself. Keep up the great work on the channel. Appreciate it. Shout out from the South Bronx, brother BKL Contreras, sports entertainment guy. Well, thank you, brother BKL. Really appreciate it. Hope you're having a great day. Weirdly enough, today is MLB free agency start day about an hour and a half ago. Then it's the election tomorrow. Then it's NFL trade deadline day tomorrow. It is a jam-packed Monday, Tuesday of this year for at least NFL and baseball fans. And then, of course, President. Yeah, a lot of stuff happening on Monday and Tuesday this week, so I'm hoping that it's a rather eventful but peaceful time for the country. But we're having a great time talking to Niners, hoping that the Niners can make that big push in the second half, and I really do think they're in a good spot to make that big push. Schedule isn't easy, but there are attainable games, and who knows, guys get hurt, players get hurt, and if San Francisco can just get out of their own way, which goes back into that Christian McCaffrey conversation. If Christian McCaffrey comes back this week or next week, it almost allows San Francisco to get out of their own way, which not exactly a 1-for-1, but it does allow them to have an easier ride to winning football games. Which you do that to yourself, you make this, nail bite in the 3rd and 4th quarters. You take those away from this team, get the defense off the field as much as they've been on the field, you're going to win a ton. And I think San Francisco, they were their own worst enemy in that first half, getting Jennings back and Moody back, which not a big addition, but mainly Christian McCaffrey back. It allows San Francisco to get out of their own way, win more football games, execute on 3rd downs in the red zone, And at that point in time, you're talking about this team's on a roll. Like, if they beat the Buccaneers and the Seahawks, and you got the Packers on the road, which Jordan Love looks like I love Jordan Love. I think he can be a great quarterback. He makes some of the dumbest decisions I have ever seen. He looks like an idiot sometimes. And you're just like, all right, Jimmy G, who gave you darker skin and put you in the Packers jersey? He's putting Jimmy G no throws up there, and you're like, oh my God. Like, he's running backwards, throwing balls out of the end zone right to D linemen. He's just like, he is the ultimate like Josh Allen hero ball when you have no reason to be. Go watch that game against the Lions, and you're just like, why are you making the decisions you are? Like, what are you seeing that makes you choose that option? And it's funny because I dropped him on my quarterback ranking list, and people weren't too mad. People were mad that Brock Purdy wasn't inside the top 5. And I was like, he's number 9. It's pretty good. I was shocked that Packer fans have been rather realistic with what Jordan Love has done. Like, Jordan Love fell from 8 to like 14 in my rankings, and he looks like that. Jordan Love, I get he's injured and whatnot, but like that game against the Packers looked really scary to begin the season. Not anymore. That game against the Bears when they beat the Panthers and the Titans, and you're like, oh no, the Bears look pretty good. They look like absolute dog dookie against the Cardinals. Caleb Williams looks bad again. Their offensive line looks like one of the worst in football, if not the worst in football. It is Seahawks and Bears fighting for the worst offensive lines in the entire league. It's been terrible. We have a comment here again by BKL saying, unfortunately, we know the Niners need CMC back through the team until you check through schedules. It's got to be difficult until you need at the top, but I'll say not exactly. Sure, you can play the schedule game all you want. Christian McCaffrey's not going to make San Francisco win games, but what he will do is he will elevate San Francisco to a point of where they should be winning games. And San Francisco, by getting in their own way and not playing well late in games, Rams, Cardinals, this team should be 6-2. And I think that is enough to make me say, well, Christian McCaffrey will be the difference in games where it's like, okay, late in games against the Cardinals, Brock Purdy throws an interception to clinch that win for the Cardinals. That's likely a check down to CMC. Drives extended, keep playing on. I think getting CMC back kind of calms everybody down, makes everything easier. Everyone kind of breathes that, okay, we're going to be okay. CMC's back. I think that's what we're talking about here. Getting him back helps on third downs, red zones, makes Brock Purdy's job easier. I mean, CMC was making Jimmy G look elite for a little bit of time. When they were in Mexico City against the Cardinals, you were like, oh, Jimmy G might be in again. That's how good Christian McCaffrey can be, and hopefully he can stay healthy for this team. But, yeah, they're in a good spot. It's not where you want to be. They should be in a better spot. But I do think San Francisco, with what they're getting back their most physical receiver in regards to running routes, Juwan Jennings. They're also getting now 3-4 weeks into practicing and 2 games under his belt, Ricky Pearsall, not to mention Christian McCaffrey, hopefully the kicker back in Jake Moody, a more depth on the offensive line. Like, this is a good place to be for the San Francisco 49ers, and hopefully, fingers crossed, tomorrow we're hearing about them acquiring Devon Gacho from the Patriots or Azeez Ojulari from the Giants. It's a good opportunity for them to buy some players for a year or two and hopefully, keep them. Like, the Niners, realistically, I think fans are too optimistic as to what they can do and not giving the Rams and Cardinals credit for what they've done so far. That said, we also have to be realistic here. The Niners have, still, without Ayuk, one of the best rosters in football. And the defense, arguably, secondary-wise, has gotten better. If they can get Greenlaw back, which I don't think he'll be back to normal self in a year, but, you get him back. Even if Greenlaw is 50% of what he was last year, that's an upgrade over what you got right now. So it's like, maybe Hufanga comes back. Like, there is an opportunity for San Francisco to kind of, whereas the last dance conversation was happening, you push back and we're like, no, the band will stay together. But it's like, this will certainly be the end of probably Hufanga and Travis Ward and Feliciano be gone and whatnot. And you'll see some players leave here or there, but I think, Greenlaw, who knows how well he recovers and whatnot, but it's like, for the last dance, felt like early in the year, it was out of the window. This team was going nowhere, and I still will push back and say this team is not Super Bowl caliber just yet. I want to see CMC back in the offense and see how he looks and plays, but they're certainly in that division-winning caliber still. If they can get hot at the right time, they can beat anybody, including Kansas City. I truly believe that, but that comes with getting hot, beating the Buccaneers this Sunday, beating the Seahawks in 2 weeks, then taking it to Green Bay in Green Bay. Like, if you win those 3 games, the team's feeling good, they get hot, they're feeling themselves again. Once San Francisco gets confidence, they are one of the hardest teams to beat in the entire league. Entire league, to a point of, if they get hot, if they get a smidge of like, the car's turning, the ignition's on, the entire league has to watch out, because it's going to be like, we have a heat-seeking missile ready to cut through the entire NFC. It is a hot knife going through butter in regards to teams like the Cardinals, the Seahawks, the Buccaneers, the Packers, the Dolphins, and even that game against the Lions, which is a long ways away. I hope San Francisco is playing hot at that time and is healthy. Even if San Francisco loses that game, I want to see 2 juggernauts in the NFC go head-to-head again. That game was incredible last year in the playoffs. Even if San Francisco loses that game, I want to see those 2 teams head-to-head, because the Lions are incredible this year. They were my pick to go to the Super Bowl this year and play the Texans, which doesn't look too bad currently. Hopefully that is incorrect and San Francisco goes back, but in regards to me being correct, it looks pretty good so far. But they look insane. And I want to see San Francisco almost have to play up to an opponent finally. San Francisco, the last couple of years, has never had to play up to a team outside of the Chiefs. I'm hoping San Francisco has to do that Week 17 against the Lions. That would be awesome to see. But CMC seems like he's back. San Francisco is getting healthy. When you see that, when you see the headlines, what do you think? Where can San Francisco go? Do they win 10 games? Do they win 11 games? Do they miss the playoffs? Tell me down below what you think the San Francisco 49ers second half looks like this season. Do you agree with my midseason awards? And what is the expectation for Christian McCaffrey once he comes back? For myself, I would say not the lead back anymore this year. Use sparingly. 3rd downs, red zone. I think you keep him in that kind of like 12 to 15 touch range per game. Don't make him this incredible, bell cow back. Lean on Mason and Grendo to help you out. I think this team, even if CMC is used as a kind of, specialty, if you will, this team can go really, really far this year. But what do you think CMC does for them this year? What do you think, and how do you think he looks coming back off the Achilles injury? Tell me down below in the comments. Like, share, and subscribe. And if you can, and you want to go watch your team play this year, use promo code 49ERSAccess, 49ERSACCESS at SeatGeek.com and save yourself $20 off your first purchase. And if you're waiting idly by of what is your team going to do at the trade deadline tomorrow, go to sportsspider.com. They have the latest news, podcast, YouTube videos, articles about your favorite team, from the Niners to the Cowboys to the Chiefs, MLB, NFL, NBA, does not matter. Go to sportsspider.com or click that link down below in the description. And don't forget to follow us on social media at 49ers_access is the X or Twitter. 49ers.access is the Instagram. My name is Sterling Bennett. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. Fun MLB free agency tonight and NFL trade deadline tomorrow. Stay tuned for any reaction to trades the Niners may or may not make tomorrow at the NFL trade deadline. As always, my name is Sterling Bennett, and stay faithful.